Hello, everyone, and welcome to Geopolitics in Conflict show. Good to see you guys. Uh, we got a lot to talk about today, especially with the visits of the foreign minister of Russia, Sergei Lavrov. But before I'll get into that, I need to mention a few things. Then we'll dive into the topic. So basically, what I want to cover into this, there are three, at least before I cover anything, there are 3 or 4 points you need to know about. One of them has to do with Germany issuing today early warning phase of its national gas. Basically, what it is that now they're going to be seeing a rationing of gas. The energy prices has already skyrocketed in Germany. So Western media is not going to be reporting that. So that's one thing. Second thing, interesting enough that some major Western powers are sending their delegate or representatives to India. So India is having a week that is packed with visits from different countries. Makes you just wonder why, and we're going to say why. Yeah. And the third one that I want you just to be aware of is that today, Turkey, despite NATO pressures, Turkey refused to sanction Russia. That is very, very interesting. So Turkey is a NATO member. So, and that will be a conversation by itself. So, well, before I delve deeper into all this and put my geopolitical analyst hat, I want to say, first of all, thank you very much for your support. Thank you for your answer to the question from yesterday. I read some of them. There are logic. Some said, no, the US will not go to war. Others say, yes, they will go to war. Maybe I made a mistake. And the mistake I could be made is that I didn't clarify. Am I talking about a hot war? And this is on me. So I bear full responsibility for that. So, because here's the thing. That could be an economic war, like exactly what happened in Hong Kong, for example. And just it didn't pan out. So I should have specified in my question. So my bad on that. The other part of the first question was the impact. Some of you, which I agree with most of the answers to that. Yes, it will have an impact into how it's going to impact the US dollar moving forward one way or another. So that was very interesting. And I have about another or two questions for you for today's session. I figured it's going to become like a ritual, shall we say. I will always put a question or two. And once again, it's my way of having a conversation with you. So two admin things I want to mention. Tomorrow, remember to join us for live stream discussions tomorrow on the other platform. Okay? And I'm going to post something for you tonight. Once I get it, Elizabeth will send it to me and I'll post it for you on the locals. And also, if this is your first time watching our channel, please subscribe. Okay. All right. Let's jump into our topic. And what I want you to just before we delve deeper into it, I'm going to share a quote with you, and I want you to keep that in your mind while putting everything we're going to be discussing into perspective within the context of what that quote is. And the quote is by the late Nelson Mandela, who once said, and I quote here, "One of the mistakes which some political analysts make is to think their enemies should be our enemies." End of quote. And I think he's right. And especially if we put it within the context of India. So here's the thing. And this is why I had to mention to you that there's a lot of visits from some other countries, representatives coming to India. All of them all at once. Why? Because Lavrov made it to India for 48 hours visit for 2 days. So let's talk about, what is the reason for Lavrov going to India? Well, it's for the obvious reasons, of course. Economics, one. It's because what is under the conversation or discussions right now in India for this visit. Because remember, Lavrov is going to meet with both the foreign minister and the prime minister. And this is very significant. But the main conversation is going to be with the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, of course. And the core of the conversation will be mainly of the sale of the discounted, yes, the sale of the heavily discounted Russian oil to India. And the payment in rupees. So it will be basically the payment by rupees into ruble. You all can see where this is going. No. Of course, the whole reason for it is to bypass the SWIFT system altogether. And this is why India didn't join the club, shall we say, in sanctioning Russia. Because economically to them, this is an opportunity. And it makes perfect sense. Whomever will be advising the prime minister, you say, that is the course of action you need to embark on. So, yet India is under pressure as we speak from some other countries, especially the member of the Quad. Those are the China-containing Quad, shall we say, the group. The United States, Australia, of course, and Japan, of course. Why? They want those countries, wants India to take a hard line on Russia as far as the sanctions. In other words, to get along with it and ban everything from importing or trading with Russia. India, Narendra Modi is the prime minister, saying no, I'm not going to do that. And this is once again where some of us in the West, they don't know. Some of us, I shall not generalize, of course, we don't understand the historical aspects as to why countries behave the way they behave. And I always say, I remember one of the conversations we had with Dr. Hammond. I remember him mentioning that you look at the history, the past will indicate to you the behavior of today, and possibly it will give you an indication about the future. So historically, if those Western voices that they are shouting so loud, if they understood the history of India and Russia's relations and put it within the context as to why Narendra Modi's government is resisting this pressure from the US, the US, Japan, and Australia. Well, here is one. The first one, it has to do with India's long history of relations and diplomatic support that India receives from Russia. And those are not from yesterday. Those are from the days way back of the Soviet Union. So you can't dismiss that all of a sudden. And the second aspect is that India has been historically very dependent on Russia, and especially when it comes down to defense. Yes, you got it right. The defense supply and equipment. Because where India gets most of its equipment, again, from Russia. Of course, they get some from Israel. Of course, those are US weapons. But India gets about some 80%. This is at the peak of its defense equipment import from Russia. Recently it dropped to about 60% or so, 50, 60. But there is the thing that you all know about defense. When you buy defense equipment, you're going to need the spare parts. But the spare parts for the India's purchase of equipments from Russia is still up at 80%. And of course, because India cannot afford not to have up-to-date defense equipment. So here's the thing. Imposing sanctions on Russia, this is India thinking. Imposing sanctions on Russia, it doesn't make any sense. It will be very awkward. Why? Because it will put India in a bad position when it comes down to supplies coming from Russia. So there is the other geopolitical issue that India had to consider. It is because the proximity to two countries that there are tensions with, China and Pakistan. Speaking of Pakistan, I don't know if you guys heard what's going on in Pakistan right now. The parliament was voting about a vote of no confidence in Imran Khan. And Imran Khan came out on the air and said he's not resigning, and he blamed the US for supporting the opposition party behind the scenes. I'll let you reach your own conclusion on that. I have my own theory to that, and the reason being because Pakistan also is one of those countries that said, we're not going to sanction Russia. So you read between the lines and see where this is going. So let's go back to India's as far as its defense equipments from Russia. And this is one of the reasons why they're saying, no, we're not going to sanction Russia, because they want to do business with them. Things are changing. The global geopolitical landscape is changing. The West needs to get it. So let's get the big picture out of all this, what it all means. Well, basically for Russia, it is trying to connect economically with other countries. And why is that? Of course, to bypass the US dollar altogether, because we all know the US dollar has been the hegemonic global currency since World War II. And it seems to Moscow, I am putting my geopolitical analyst hat, it seems to Moscow thinking if they could make arrangements with some countries, that they will be in a position to bypass all the SWIFT sanctions and all that. And who are those countries? You don't need an entire world. You only need major two, India and China. And why is this? It's because you look at India with over 1 billion in population. You look at China with over 1 billion in population, and you can just see why. The other thing is, for India is considered one of the third consuming country in the world when it comes down to energy. So, and let alone that India also is a fast-growing economy. So we can ignore those, as I always say, the trends. You can't ignore those, because those play a major role into influencing the trajectory of the geopolitical landscape direction. So when you take about two of the fastest growing economies on the planet, so India will make its choice whether to split economically, okay, and even geopolitically for that matter from the West, and help in assisting or creating a new bloc. There is the possibility for that. I personally see it. I see it coming on the horizon. Only if India plays its cards right. I always ask myself the question, with India's potentials, India has a lot of potentials. Yes, they got ethnic issues and all that. So other countries, we have it here at home. That's a normal thing, and it's not something to sort of pinpoint or criticize for. No, those are normal. Ethnic tensions and so forth. It just becomes in how a government manage those kind of tensions. But that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the potentials, especially when it comes down to human capitals that India has. And I wish they truly can tap into that energy, the human capital, because it's a vibrant market, and you can't ignore India's market. That just I was questioning their judgments about when they decided about Huawei and all that stuff. I don't know what was the rationale for that decision. But when it comes down to where they're seeing the trends going, India can play a role into that. As a matter of fact, I go as far as saying India could have the possibility of influencing that trajectory, that new geopolitical trajectory. And here is why. Because that shift, the geopolitical shift, I'm not talking about the wealth, The wealth is already shifting from the west to the east. I'm talking about the geopolitical shift. And that geopolitical shift is going to be in Eurasia. And India will play a major role into that if they play their cards right. And this is why you're seeing the trips of so many. And I kind of digged a little bit from some other sources to find that. Well, the Israeli Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, okay, you got the U.S. Deputy National Security Agency is in New Delhi. You got, of course, Liz Truss, the UK Foreign Minister. I call her the amateurish one. She was in India. And by the way, she was in India at the same time Lavrov was there. But she only ended up meeting with, what's his name, the foreign minister. I don't think so. She was given an audience with Narendra Modi. That's to my understanding. Then you get also the visit of the Nepal Prime Minister Sharmadova. Then you got also the visit of the Mexican Foreign Minister Marcelo Obrador Cosban. Those are very important factors to take into consideration when analyzing why Lavrov's visit to India means a lot. And this is why Lavrov, the foreign minister rather, will be given the audience with Narendra Modi. UK Foreign Minister Liz Truss, well, it's because I believe the Indian government truly understand how the Brits play the game, because you can't trust them. That's their approach, let alone the history, which we all know. And I'm not getting into this right now. That can be a video on its own. We all know the history of UK in India and what it did to India. And I don't think, I could be wrong, but I don't think Indian population forgot what the Brits did to India. Evans, I thank you very much for your super sticker. Appreciate it. Yeah, I don't think so. India forgot that, and this is why I'm saying to myself, this is a historical opportunity for India to play its card right. And this is why I use the term snub. Is India snubbing the West, or could I go as far as saying, is India ditching the West? And if you remember, you can check one of my old videos when I did with Ross. I remember when we talked about the Quad. And back then I said, India is not convinced about this Quad thing. I wasn't even convinced that this Quad's going to work to begin with. You got Australia and Japan. Of course, those are spineless anyway. They can do nothing. And they just embark on whatever. India was in a different position. South Korea at that time, you remember when Moon Jae-in was in Washington and the Washington was pressing him to sort of issue statements, negative one about China, and he said, no, I can't do that. And his reason for that is we South Korean trade volumes with China. I can't risk my country's companies in losing business with China. And it was the right decision on his part for his own country. Australia, unfortunately, ended up going blindly following without considering long-term impacts. And once again, I'm not saying countries should be afraid of China or Russia or South Africa or what have you. What countries needs to do is to think pragmatically and think long-term. And this is why I'm saying for this, the way I see it is that India is provided with a historical opportunity to decide, because I almost look at it like a fork road. India can go this direction or this direction. It's up to them to decide now. They know where things are headed. They know geopolitically the global order is changing, whether the West like it or not, as I always say. That's, as we say, it's a fait accompli. Let's not pretend. Let's not suggest that no. The global order is still under the U.S. as it has been for the last 70 years. No, it's not. Things are changing, and this is where it's gonna become upon CK. Thank you very much. Appreciate your super sticker. And this is what I'm saying. India has to look at it pragmatically. You have to look at it from an economic perspective. You have to look at it also from a strategic aspects of it. So, of course, there are some analysts inside India, and I had a chance to read up some of their analysis. I respect their opinion. I'm not saying they're wrong, whatever. That's their thinking. That's how they see it. Except that they didn't see it far enough. And their argument was that, no. India shouldn't get in bed with Russia or China. Really? Because to me, when you think of it that way, you are not putting into consideration the geopolitical shift that's going to force other countries to shift their position towards where the center of gravity is. And the center of gravity for the new geopolitical order is not the West, it's the East. And that's why I kind of, as I said, they're entitled to their analysis. They are whatever. I just happen to disagree with that because they didn't base it on a long-term impact. And what I'm talking about the impact for India, not next year, not the following year. I'm talking about the impact between now and 2050. Because by 2050, you're going to see it will be a major shift. I don't know if I'm going to be around to witness that or not. It won't matter. So, but this is what I see. And I disagree with some of their analysis. That was, if I am to categorize it, I'm not putting anybody down here. I'm just saying what's realistic. It was short-sighted. That's the way I will categorize it. So the idea of for India to think now in terms of how they're going to move forward. And here is the other interesting aspect that I found very interesting with all the visits from the other country, representatives from other countries, and it will matter for that, because what matters now is what Russia and China will be able to accomplish. Because between Russia and India, what they will be able to accomplish. Why? Because India made it clear now that they are not going with the sanctions. They're not going to sanction Russia, no matter what the West says. Same thing with what Turkey, a NATO member, just did today. It's because they are realizing, at least those two countries, they are realizing where things are headed. Same thing with China. They realized we're not going to sanction Russia. Same thing with Pakistan. We're not going to sanction Russia. But here is the interesting aspects that I found about the Lavrov's trip to India, beside what I talked about, is where he came from directly. He didn't came from Moscow directly. He didn't flew from Moscow to New Delhi. He flew from China to New Delhi. He was in China. And once again, think outside the box. Just think outside the box for a moment. Why is that significant? It is significant given the relationship between Russia and China. Okay? That relationship could play a role into finding resolution or peaceful means for the border disputes between China and India. That will be, in my opinion, a geopolitical win-win for both of them, India and China on one hand, and it will be another win for both India and China and Russia. Once again, just take a step back and think about the impact of something like this. From an economic perspective, you got the two large markets in the world with a third of the population residing in that part of the world. And I said this before, Russia will make up the difference. And this is why Russia moved forward with insisting that the payments will be in ruble, not the euros. I know the G7 members now are looking at the contract. What's his name? Mario Prodi of Italy. He's the prime minister. He's looking at the contract, what it says. The Germans, Olaf Scholz is looking at the contract, what it says you have to pay in euro, whatever. Russia said, whatever. What you need to do is you open a bank account in Russia and you pay in ruble. Simple as it is. Because Russia, as he mentioned, that we pay when we get something is the same thing. And it's no more business practice. And this is where I see once again, just to tie it to the historical opportunity that this kind of conflicts going on between the West and Russia, that provides India with that opportunity. Will they sort of embark on it from a good perspective to improve their standing in the world? Yes, they could, if they play their card right. I mean, we know infrastructure-wise, India still have a lot of work to do. That's not the problem. If they decide to shift eastward, that's going to be a different approach altogether. But the border disputes between India and China will have to be resolved before India embark on that trajectory. Without resolving that issue, it won't work. That's the way I see it. And it will be to their benefit. Because why would you want to waste your resources allocating everything to the borders and all that stuff? What for? When you could focus on your infrastructure, when you could focus on your economy. India has the manpower, over 1.3 billion people. You got the manpower. You got the human capitals. This is where I see it going. And the other aspects of it is that Russia understood, because Russia is good at strategic thinking, shall we say. It is my belief, and this is my personal opinion, that Russia thought about all, if not most, of the possible outcomes to their military operations in Ukraine and what this will lead to. I have no doubt. Once again, you go back to the 10th, 11th, 12th, during Peter the Great, and you look at the history of the Soviet Union back then, and with all the crises they went through and so forth. There is no way that they have not considered what's taking place right now. That's why I'm not surprised when Russia now is demanding from Europe if they want the gas. As a matter of fact, Russia could cut off the gas tomorrow. This is why Germany went ahead and issued the warning. And the warning is a nice way of saying to the German people, we're going to be rationing now gas, because prices are already jacked up, way beyond what people can afford. This is where I see it going. So it was very interesting when I looked at the India's diplomatic calendar as to who's visiting. Very, 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 very interesting. And I almost go in parallel with what's going on with India's visits and all that, and what's taking place in Pakistan. I do find it's not a coincidence. So that's very, very interesting. So here's the thing. Let me share a quick conclusion with you guys. Here's the thing. What will be important? What is important to note or to get out of all this? Is that one, India is a nuclear power, okay? Whose population over $1.3 billion, 1.3 billion people, which makes it what? the world third largest importer of oil. Once again, think of energy. Yes, the amount of energy that they're gonna be importing, which as a matter of fact, they imported on March 28 from Russia, amounts to about 3 million barrels of oil. It's irrelevant. It's insignificant, right? For now. But that's not the point of it. The act in itself is an enormous, I would say, shift that is targeting the US dollar. That is the message that is sending. 3 million barrel, what's that? What is going to do in a population of 1.3 billion? That's nothing, but that's the beginning of it. And this is why I go back again to what I said earlier. If India plays its cards right, and when I say cards, I'm referring to strategic, it can become a winner. Okay? So the question to you will become, and that's not the question that I'm going to leave you with. It's just the question to think. We're just thinking out loud, What will India do? How India will proceed in Europe? If you are to think about it. Well, most likely India will go with the flow. And what will be that flow? That flow is that this shift is to their benefit. If the sort of pivot east, that's going to be a conversation inside the Modi's government to decide on that. And given its momentous enclosure, it will feel a little of the flow, how this is going to impact India, outside its regions. Because there are some analysts from the West, not inside India, there are those who argue that India has no strategic interests. Though it would be happy, India will be happy to see, for example, I'm going to say it, the devolution of the Tibet issue from China, if that carried no risk to India. I know it is a touchy subject, but when I hear, as I always say, guys, I don't sugarcoat things, because I have to present the argument as is for you to reach your own conclusion. All I'm saying is I'm presenting the facts. What could lead to India, in this case, to embark on this policy, but not this one. I do believe that if there is risks involved that will involve India when it comes down to the Tibet issue, no, they're not going to get involved in that. There is no way. Why? Because also India cannot afford two fronts, one with Pakistan and one with China. And it will be stupid, and I use the term, it will be stupid of India to even embark on such conflict at this moment. They are now on a juncture, a split road. Why would you want to get involved in a conflict that's going to not only drain your resources, but could turn things upside down? And that's why I don't see them doing that. But if there is no risk, they will be happy to see that. India is also and always has been interested in the possibility of increasing its own defense. And what do I mean by defense in this context? I'm talking about naval powers. Of course, you're going to have to take into consideration the tensions with Pakistan. That's a given. With China, it could be worked out. Why? Because now Russia is in the middle. Russia can play that role. Russia has good relations with both. Once again, you have to look at the history of the former Soviet Union, the relationship, historically speaking, with India. This is what I see, how things will proceed. So basically, what will be for India at this stage is truly understand its position within the geopolitical landscape. Where does it stand? I'm not saying India is not standing at the forefront because they can't. That just let's put things where they belong. Okay, but India has a place in the geopolitical order, especially now more than ever, in my opinion, because they are provided, and I say it again, they are provided with a historical opportunity. If they play their cards right, it's all about understanding how to play your strategic cards right. For us in the United States, we are playing cards the wrong way. Yes, I'll say this is why the idea of understanding why I sometimes have to not only criticize but point out the flaws of the American foreign policy, because there are major flaws. Because our foreign policy, United States, has no vision, it has no direction, and it just is reactionary. We react to events rather than being proactive. When it comes down to foreign policy, you have to think far ahead and not to react to this, but have policies in place in the event of something like this happen. You already have policy in place. You think about it like post goals or goal posts, whatever. Yeah, you don't keep shifting the goal posts anytime an event happen. That would be a good idea. Edwin Vargas, thank you very much for your super sticker. Appreciate it. This is where that idea of, and once again, just to tie it to our conversation about India, the goalposts right now are this: the East and the West. India is right here in the middle. Which direction is going to go? Because each party, when I say each party, I'm referring to the East and the West, each of them pulling the goalpost towards its own directions. So India will have to ensure, where is my strategic interest? Where do my strategic interests lie? And once again, you think about that 2050. It's only about 20 years from now or so. This is what I believe India has to think very shrewdly about how to make its decisions. I remember back then, and I was a follower of India when, what's his name? Atal Vajpayee used to be the one who held office for 3 terms. Vajpayee approach, of course, because international affairs at that time, the global reactions at that time was different, because the crisis and the issues at that time are different from today. It's no different than Manmohan Singh. When he took the helm of power in India, he had to react to whatever the global affairs at that day or at that time. Now, Narendra Modi will have to figure out how to sort of preposition India for what lies ahead, because there is a shift. I mean, it would be absurd to even consider that India doesn't see that. And that's why I go back to my earlier statement about the judgments or the pragmatism as to why India agreed to the Quad in the first place, knowing what they know about it's not going to work geopolitically for them. Why would they even do that? And I think my prediction was spot on when I said back then that I don't think so India is convinced about this Quad. It won't work. Australia and Japan are like toothless. They can't do nothing anyway. So this is what I see. And that's why I wanted to come on the air and just provide you this brief analysis to have an understanding of where things are. So before I close here, and I'll ask you, of course, the 2 questions, I want just to remind you tomorrow to join us for live stream if your schedule permits. And also, if this is your first time watching this channel, please subscribe. Here's my questions for the day. Let me get to the questions here. All right, here's the question. The first one. Is a trade alliance likely to take place between Russia and India? Because remember, they are just talking now. There's nothing sort of pinned out in treaty or sort. So we're just thinking out loud here. Is a trade alliance would likely to happen between Russia and India? The second question is, will India ditch the West in favor of the East? I repeat the two questions. Is is a trade alliance between Russia and India will take place? Second question, will India ditch the West for the East? I hope you find this information very useful, guys, and I look forward to seeing you next time. As always, stay informed. Till next time. Bye-bye.